created a red tape hotline. So, Small Business Administration, the SBA. I'm gonna get the website up here so you can look this up by just typing. You can search for this red tape hotline SBA. This is an opportunity for you to report issues for the federal rules, that are outdated, federal regulations. So the types of issues that you can report that's coming from the website, you can talk about, or you can tell them about regulations that are costly, confusing, or outdated, permitting or licensing delays, duplicative or conflicting rules, excessive paperwork, or unclear guidance. This is another step forward in being able to reduce unnecessary government involvement, unnecessary regulations in the different industries for your small business, or the industry your small business is in, and is continuing to move forward in this America future is a small business renaissance I've talked about, that's made possible by free market capitalism. The more we can lean towards limited government involvement, the more this can happen for a small business renaissance. And I really do believe that America's future is a small business renaissance. So I am excited to talk more about the hotline, what's been happening this week, specifically in the House Committee on Small Businesses, and explain more about that. Because, as I said, limited government involvement, I believe in that in industries to avoid monopolies forming, and then to create more opportunities for competition, and making it easier for small businesses to get started through less regulations. That we're moving in that direction, but it's gonna, as I said, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make these changes happen. But us coming together and continuing to have a powerful voice and expressing what changes we're looking for in as small business owners and as supporters of small businesses is going to be very, very important. And uh, what I want to also do with this is give some space to set you the stage of what goes on in the two chambers and that process for these bills. Because there's a few bills that I want to share with you that uh, were that were passed favorably, that were given favorable sign off, you could say, in the House Committee on Small Businesses. And I want to explain to you like that process, because you may not be familiar with that, because as I know, it can be so easy as a small business owner. You stay in your small world of, okay, I just got to get through the day, make sure I'm surviving, figuring out ways to make a profit, to continue to reinvest in the business, to continue to make this thing happen. But it's really important to give yourself that space to understand on a national level what is going on, because I talked about on an individual level, it's so important to not let stress control your day. And when you can understand what's going on a national level and notice with clarity what the bigger picture is, and how your specific industry falls into the bigger picture, your specific business falls into the bigger picture of the industry as a whole. Like when things start to make more sense, or start to make sense, and there's more of those aha moments that come up for you, that's where you can feel less stressed. I know this personally for me, I feel less stressed because I know what's going on here. I know this makes sense. This is why this is happening. And wherever, as I said before at the show, wherever it doesn't make sense for you, be curious, ask questions. Even when people are telling you don't ask questions here, you don't need to know about that. No, if you feel that in your gut, trust that gut and be able to trust your gut and be able to move forward and be curious and ask questions. So welcome back. Excited to go live here, close out this week, second week of going live. I'm gonna get the chat up here. Let's dive into this thing. So that's the red tape hotline. I want to get into. All right, let me do the set the stage for the bigger picture here. So you have the two chambers, House and Senate, in the federal government. The committees. This is important to remember these committees in each one of them. For the House, it's the House Committee on Small Businesses, and then for the Senate, it's Senate Committee on Small Businesses and Entrepreneurship. So those are two really important committees to remember as a small business owner, to understand what is going on in your world, and on the federal government, on that federal level. So earlier this week, there were 7 bills that were given favorable favorable marks from the committee. So the committee voted on it. In the House, there are 27 committee members in there, and with the bills, I want to go through the ones that could relate to the ones that relate back to some of the topics we talked about this week, and then get into explaining what those are so you're aware of it, and then share with you the process of how those bills go from being introduced all the way up to being signed into law by President Trump, and explain that process. So let me start with the bills that I'm interested in. And this you can look up on the website. I'm going to read the description for each one of these that interest me. So it's the HR 5763. It's Main Street Parity Act. And the chairman for the House committee is Roger Williams from Texas. Really important to remember, the chairman. So he introduced this one. The bill brings parity to all industries and small business administration. 504 loan program by eliminating the 5% equity requirement for limited or single purpose properties. And so through the Small Business Administration, there's loan programs, and one of those is a 504 loan program. What I could find on that one, it's for like a fixed. It's to buy major fixed assets, and you can think about this as like buildings. So the limited or single purpose properties, understanding what that is, that could be things like a bowling alley, gas station, hotel. Like there's a single purpose for it, and so it can be riskier for if it doesn't work out for that specific business for the loan. So by taking away the 5%, it can make it easier to get started. You don't have to put as much money down as a borrower, a small business owner, down for this loan. So taking out the 5% makes it across all industries, makes it fair, you could say, is a word that would come up with that. So that's the one that interests me. And the problem that comes up with these loans, though, is there's a lot of paperwork involved. It can feel like it can take a long time for the process of approval, and from what I could find. And so there's not as many of these loans. I think what I could find was in 2000 or last year, 2024, there were 5,400 total of these loans. So you think about the 33 million small businesses that are out there. And then, I mean, I know you could condense it down to like, okay, which ones would be looking for these type of loans for limited or single purpose properties or for, big equipment. So yeah, it's something to think about. It's like, were there other opportunities to make it more efficient? So that was one that interests me. Another one was the HR 5764. And it goes back to what we talked about with AI, with the data centers, just how much energy usage is expected with these data centers. But this one goes into, it's the AI for Main Street Act. And what this one says is the bill requires SBA funded small business development centers to help small businesses adopt artificial intelligence, AI, into their business operations through counseling and training to entrepreneurs. And it goes back to what we talked about with like, okay, is there a bubble coming up here with AI? It's just how I'm seeing it for the energy, and then the energy usage, and then having to build these data centers out, the timelines, and then with the other factors in the economy. It's something to think about and be curious about. Is there a bubble here that's coming up really fast? The other bill is the HR 5784. So this is Artificial Intelligence Wisdom for Innovative Small Enterprises Act. This bill requires the SBA to provide educational AI resources that small businesses can easily access. So, going back to accessibility with this stuff. The other one that I'm interested in, this relates back to the red tape hotline. This is the HR 4305, destroying, I like this name, destroying unnecessary, misaligned, and prohibitive. And then the acronym is DUMP, Red Tape Act of 2025. So for this one off the website, it says the bill codifies the efforts of President Trump and the SBA Office of Advocacy to establish a red tape hotline where small businesses can report excessive regulatory burdens. I would have liked to have been like in that room for when that name came up of DUMP for the acronym. It's like destroying unnecessary, misaligned, and prohibitive DUMP Red Tape Act of 2025. Yeah, it would have been fun to be in that room and see like how they come up with that. So those bills, there's other ones too, but total of 7 that happened on Tuesday, November 18th. Let me make sure I get that date right. I'm like, I don't want to say it's a date. Like this is where I have to check on this one. November 18th. Yeah. All right. No, what I'm trying. I gotta make sure here. What day is November 18th, 2025? Right? It was a Tuesday. Tuesday. Yep, Tuesday. All right. So for these, so what happens now is that these bills they move onto the House into the they get put on the House calendar for a vote, a discussion. You have conversations about it, and then there can be amendments that can be made, and so then a vote happens on the House or in the House on the House floor, and then what will happen is it'll go into then the Senate committee, which goes into I talked about Senate Committee on Small Business and Enterprises. The chair for that one is Joni Ernest. And from there, it'll be the discussions, vote on it to decide it's favorable. Then it moves forward for a vote in the Senate. And if there's been any changes that have been made, what happens to that bill is that so it can either pass a bill exactly same version as the House, and then if it passes in the Senate, it goes to signature for the president. So President Trump would then sign it, or just like let it. There's another, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's like you either sign it, you don't sign it, and if Congress is still in session, it just passes automatically. And then, if not, you have the pocket veto, where you don't sign it. So a few different things, but I mean, that's besides the point. What I want to get into though is if there are changes that are made in the Senate and it passes the Senate, then it's got to go back to the House. And that's where, you talk through those discussions, like ping pongs back and forth, or you get a conference committee lined up. So you can see how this, or hear how this can take a while, depending on what bill is trying to be passed. And it can be challenging for this stuff and overwhelming at the same time. So I want to try to make sure I'm being able to communicate it to you of like, make sure you understand this process. That does take a while. It can be going back to what I talked about. If you're not getting if you're not seeing the results that you want over years, you can get into this hopeless feeling, and it's just like that's something I want this show to be able to provide for you is hope, and being able to figure out how can we be able to make it more efficient, but in a way that also is giving enough space for conversations and understanding different perspectives and point of views. And so you've got to create that balance. And but it's important just to have awareness of what the process is like. And so I know this one can feel like boring and feel like, God, I shouldn't really know about this, but it's so important for you to understand how this process works. It helps out for you to connect different points and realize why certain things are taking so long, what could be the challenges, because then you can continue to express your voice with being able to have more certainty as to what you're talking about, because you understand the process and what's going on. And then figuring out how best to be able to move forward and make those changes and to not give up in that process as well. Like that's something we got to remember about this country here in the U.S. is to this focus of meritocracy, of putting in the hard work, being able to look at the behaviors of each other, and from there be able to move forward during the really challenging times and move through those hard times and be able to take on the responsibility and accountability. It's something we got to keep focused on. in this country, and not just get away from it because, oh, you're part of a certain group, or if it's your skin color or culture, like you get this. No, we gotta judge it off of the behaviors and the actions, and goes back to meritocracy. And that's we got to make sure we continue to focus on that as an important principle here in this country, is focusing on what are you doing, what are you contributing, what are you doing here in this country. And as small business owners, it's important for us to continue to voice that out into the community, because with 33 million small businesses that are out there that employ 45% of the private workforce, this is a powerful voice that we got to continue to unite and come together for, and really celebrate and value meritocracy in our society. So that's the process. I wanted to get into that. And it goes back to, there is a lot of hard work that's going to be involved here, a lot of work involved. And it's not to be discouraged on it. This isn't going to happen overnight, but a lot of changes can happen quickly if we continue to come together and unite with this movement. It is a determined movement that gives me a lot of hope, and your support with this movement is what continues to fuel my courage as well to move forward. It plays a big part in that, for my courage to show up, seek out the truth, to dive into this work, to give you an understanding of what's going on within our federal government relating to small businesses and that process, and then to continue to move towards this future, America's future, which I do believe America's future is a small business renaissance made possible by free market capitalism. So continuing to focus on your freedom to be able to decide how you make a living, which includes owning your small business, and not letting that be taken away. And I know in your immediate world, you're focused on, like, let me make sure I get my bills paid, making payroll, if you got team members, making sure that my basic needs are met. And I think about it for younger people, their livelihood and their future were intergenerationally stolen from them. And, you don't just got to look at I talked about this before, look at the, over $38 trillion in debt, student loans, the amount of debt that's out there, thinking of amount of young people that are using BNPLs to pay for things like groceries that I talked about. It's not just that, but it's the quality of life. It's the purchasing power. Look at home ownership. And the average price of homes back at the beginning of 1980s was like 3 times median income. Now it's 7 times median income. So there is a lot of work, and it's not to ignore the problems at hand, but the ways that we can be able to get rid of unnecessary government regulations in these industries, to open up more opportunities for Americans to start small businesses in their industry, and then from there to be able to create more jobs from that, and then be able to increase competition, is going to help to move us forward towards America's future as a small business renaissance. And that continues to fuel me as well. That's a big part of my fuel, is knowing, like, okay, we can make this happen. We do not have to stay on the sidelines here. We can come together, work together. And yes, government is going to be involved in this, but it's also focusing on how to limit government involvement in these different industries, and where there's overregulation, unnecessary regulation, moving towards being able to get rid of that in your specific industry. And that's what, with this red tape hotline, that's the hope, is to be able to move towards that direction. So thank you for being here, for supporting this movement. And it wouldn't be possible without your support to continue to move forward with this. It wouldn't be possible. So I'm excited for seeing you next week. There's a lot of topics I'm going to get into more at the beginning of the week that definitely I talked about it before with some of these other topics. There's a lot of shocking data out there, shocking information. I want to also make sure that we're sharing solutions, potential ways to be able to move forward and make changes. So thank you for your support, and then see you next week.